Hey everybody, it is time to start getting ready. I know I alluded to it before in my video where I introduced you to Esther, my new boat, but I am or have finally worked up the nerve, courage. I don't know what I worked up, but something to go on my first solo canoe trip. And it's not a massive trip by any stretch of the imagination, but because it's my first, I'm going to take it easy just to prove to myself that I can do it. And then we'll reassess from there to see whether I could or want to do longer trips. But I've finally reached a point where I want to go on a solo trip. Yes, it scares the knickers right off me, I'll tell you that. But I have all the feels. So, I'm really excited. I'm really scared. Oh, thank you. I feel like it's something that I want to do this year. It is something I never thought ever I would ever feel comfortable or ready enough to do, but I finally made it, which is interesting. And I think this was all spurred on from my trip this past spring back to Algonquin, one of our favorite places pretty much on the planet. I just love it there. And while I was on my trip this spring, I read the book, Paddle My Own Canoe by Esther Kaiser, who I feel like I have this crazy connection with, although I never met her. So I'm going to kind of do a quick stop around the cabin that she has in Algonquin, or had, and probably has passed on to family. I hope her family still has it. And just do a lot of relaxing. So really today I just wanted to bring you through how I'm preparing for the trip. Of course, this is my first solo trip, so take this with a grain of salt. However, I have tripped quite a bit with Brian and other people. So it's not my first rodeo, just my first rodeo alone. So let me just bring you through what I'm going to bring with me and kind of the planning. So of course, to start, I have my canoe pack. We have an Ostrom, I think it's a 120 liter pack with, where is she? The waterproof bag lining. This is a really great pack. If you haven't heard of Ostrom packs before, they're great because they're extremely well built. They have a lot of great handholds on the bag to get your bag in and out of the canoe. And they have pretty much like custom harnesses. So we have a small for Brian and I, and it fits us really nicely. So I can't say enough about this pack. Super comfortable, as comfortable as packs can be to carry. What do I have in here? I feel something. Oh yeah, my tight pegs. So for this trip, I did purchase a lot of things new to us. Because either I've shared them in the past with other people, or other people that have come on trips with us have brought them. I've borrowed things, and I just felt like it was time to invest in some things for safety, but also for comfort, and just purchasing new technology. But a lot of the stuff that I'm taking with me is stuff that we already have here at home. So let's start with what I'm taking in the canoe pack. So first of all, our tent. So I pack our tent in two separate packs. I wish I had a solo tent, but I just didn't want to spend the money on a new tent when we have one that works. So I'm taking our 2-man or our 2-person Eureka El Capitan 2, which is a phenomenal tent. I love it. I mean, I don't have a lot to compare it to. It's heavier than newer tents out there, but it's also a fraction of the cost. So if you are bound by finances, which most of us are, they are reasonably priced, and they just had a really great sale on Eureka stuff. And you know what? I should have pulled the trigger and purchased a second El Capitan, because this one is, we went on our first trip, I think in 2010, I think it was 2009, 2000. So this tent is almost 15 years old. But anyways, I keep the fly in one compression sack and the tent in another compression sack. That is because if it rains, then the fly stays separate than the tent, and you don't have to put wet with dry. So, that it's helpful. So we have that. My tent pegs, or my tent, what are these called? Tent poles and pegs. I should get a smaller compression sack, but actually one of the new purchases I made was the No Bug Zone from Eureka. In my spring video, you'll see that we had the old one where it's a separate tarp and then the bug shelter, which has its advantages because you can use the tarp by itself, which we've done a ton. But I bought the new one. It was on sale, almost like 30 or 40% off. It was a great deal. So in this new No Bug Zone, the tarp is attached to the bug netting. So it goes in one compression sack, and it is bulky for sure. Like, look at the size of this thing. It's just a little bit smaller than my sleeping bag, but on this trip and even on our spring trip, there were a lot of bugs. I imagine I'm going to be doing some sitting and lounging and hanging out at camp when I'm by myself. So I wanted to invest in something that I could seek shelter from the rain, but also from the bugs that is not my tent. So we have that. I'll save this for later, but I gotta get it out from the back there. I have my first aid kit. My first aid kit is a little bit bulky because I've added some items that I wanted to add separately, but everything that first aid wise is in here, and maybe I'll do another video on that at another time. Toilet paper. So this is a remnant package from our spring trip. All I do to pack toilet paper, just to make it packable or better packable, I take out the cardboard center. You don't have to. And then I vac seal them together. So here's a vac sealed pack of 2 rolls of toilet paper, which is ample, but you just never know. So I'm bringing this one if there's room. This is a separate tarp from Eureka. Because our tent is old, it makes me nervous just relying on the fly. I think it would be okay. I've never had any leaks. I storm tested it. It really got storm tested this spring. If you want to see that, go back and watch our spring video where we were in one of the craziest storms I've ever experienced. But this tarp was awesome. So I'll probably set this up over our tent. It's supposed to be blazing hot. Highs of near 40 degrees Celsius with the Humidex. So I would imagine that I'm going to maybe try to sleep with the fly off. It'll depend on how brave I am. For some reason in my mind, the fly adds an extra layer of protection from nighttime invaders, i.e. bears. So my tarp, tent pegs and line. So this is actually a lot of weight, but it's okay. Because the portage I'm doing is something like 290 meters on the way in and a couple that are just like 700 on the way out if I choose to do the loop. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. It will depend on weather. This is a new purchase for me. When we went in the spring with my sister and brother-in-law, they wanted us to get these chairs before we left, and I was adamant. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'll sit on the ground or I'll sit on the benches, because most of the sites in Algonquin have these really nice wood benches. But I did end up pulling the trigger and getting a Helinox Zero chair. I watched a lot of reviews, and you know what? I have no idea. They have the cafe chairs, the higher ones, but I just got the little squatty one. Yeah, and we'll see how it performs. I'll report back, but it is super light, easy to set up, and got good ratings. So I got a camp chair. This is my sleeping bag. I have a sleeping sheet and a pillow all in here. I know I will not need my like minus 15 sleeping bag, but it's all I have. And I did bring like a North Face sheet, but I wanted something more than just the sheet if I did get cold. So yeah, bulky, but it'll be okay for this trip. Don't mind carrying it, short portages. If I like solo tripping or we do more tripping in the summertime when it is hot, then maybe we'll invest in some quilts, because that definitely is the way to go in the summertime. I've got, of course, my safety line for the canoe and a canoe, like a boating essentials kit. You can get these at Canadian Tire. I also have quite a bit of, I like to bring a lot of rope. My bear hang stuff I don't have together yet, but I use a throw ball and Zing It throw ball line to set my bear barrel. And then I use a set of micro pulleys and carabiners. And, you know, Brian actually made some good footage when we were out in the spring, but I didn't do a good job filming. So maybe I'll make a separate video on that. Now, they do make now bear proof containers that you can leave on the ground. But I want every single measure. I want to use every measure to avoid bears. If you, I didn't make a video about it, but I got chased up a tree. Well, I went up a tree when a bear came charging at me in the fall in our forest here. And so I would say like it hasn't made me more afraid of bears, but I just have a stronger appreciation for them. And I just want to make sure that I've done everything I can possibly do to keep a bear out of camp while I'm there. We also finally bought a new map case from Barrel Works, which makes a lot of really amazing canoe tripping gear. So if you're interested, visit that site because you can get a lot of really cool stuff. But anyways, we got a map case, and I also invested in Jeff's maps. We have so many Algonquin Park maps. But these really are above and beyond for navigating, and it comes with a free online map that you can use, upload to. I use Avenza Maps, so you can have that on your device, like your cell phone, when you're paddling without using data or anything like that. So I feel like I'm ready to roll in that department. I also have a waterproof phone case. I didn't use it in the spring, but I might use it on this trip. The big reason why I didn't use it was because I film a lot with my iPhone. I just have this little DJI Action 4 camera and my iPhone, so I don't have any fancy cameras. A pocket saw. So this is like a folding, this isn't a pocket, this is a folding saw. This is what I use for firewood, and it works just fine. We've used it for years. There are a lot of really other cool saws out there, but I'll wait till this one bites the dust before we invest in another one. I have where I use a padded yoke for carrying on the portage. Guess you don't pool noodle to transport my car. That's just in a pile. I don't really need it. And so this trip, we have different sizes of barrels. We have a larger barrel. I don't know how many liters these are. But for this trip, I'm hoping to take this smaller Eureka barrel and harness because it is only me. So my food really doesn't take up a lot of volume. So I'm going to have to pre-pack this. I've already done like like a dry run pack, and I think everything's gonna fit, but I'm really not gonna know before I go. But I've got 2 other barrels with harnesses in the basement, so I'm set for barrels. But I find personally that a barrel is great because, first of all, it keeps everything dry. It's easy to open and close. It's great for a bear hang because it's not scent free, but it does help when you're hanging for the bear. The only thing with this barrel that I'm worried or a little bit nervous about is on our other barrels, we have handles that we hang from. So for this barrel, I'm probably gonna leave the harness on and hang with the shoulder straps, which will be fine. And if it rains, in the springtime, you worry about getting cold. At this time of year, most days, I think it's like high of 30, 31 with the Humanex 37, 38. I am not worried about getting wet. In fact, I'll probably spend a lot of time in the water. So in my barrel, 2 of the things that we bring all of the time are like one of these plastic cutting boards. It's great for obviously cutting things, but also for preparing food. So I'll make, when I bring the Outback oven, I make cinnamon buns and other baked goods with my Outback oven. I'm not bringing it this trip, but it is still really good. And it just slides down along the inside of your barrel. So it's not like it's bulky or adds a lot of weight. And then for repairs, you never know what kind of circumstance you might run into when you're out there. But we purchased these sheets of duct tape from Princess Auto. Duct tape we also carry duct tape. I will also bring duct tape in the roll, but these sheets of duct tape, if you ever have to patch a canoe and you don't have anything else, we've done a balsam fir resin patch with this before, and it held for, I think it was like 25 kilometers of paddling and portaging out of Algonquin before. So this stuff is remarkable. So we always pack that. And let me just bring you up to this area here. The lighting isn't as great, but I'll just go through with you what I've got laid out. I don't have my food totally prepared yet. Like, everything's dehydrated, and I really simplified things for this trip because in my world, preparing food is a chore. I don't love it. So I made 3 of the same meals, and then I'm going to do pizzas for the other evenings. And then I've brought a bunch of other foods like instant oatmeal for breakfast. I'm not doing anything fancy. I think I'm going to bring some Bisquick if I wanted to make some cinnamon buns just over the fire. But I do have these inserts. These I actually borrowed from my sister and brother-in-law. These inserts to pack food in. So if you do one for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, I probably won't eat 3 round meals because I don't have to, because I'm by myself, so I can eat whatever I want. Which Kevin Callan did tell me is one of the perks of solo tripping, and I tend to agree. And so I will prepare my food closer to, like, I basically just pack it in these containers, and might make a different video on what I'm eating, but it really isn't fancy. I've got some trail mix and some protein bars. Like I said, instant oatmeal. I'm going to bring some peanut butter jam, flatbread, and then I have stuff for pizza. And the other meal I made is sausage, rice, and veggies, which I'm just going to rehydrate and eat. So super simple. And of course, I'm going to have cheese. That goes with everything. So here is this is my utensil bag. So I have everything I need in here. So knife, fork, spoon, and some serving utensils, and then my lighter for my stove. So that is an essential. In here, I do have a repair kit. I'm not sure where that is, so I have to locate it, but it is in a Nalgene bottle. So it has zip ties and wire and, all the things that you might need for a repair. Where is the Nalgene? The repair kit?
Downstairs in the pool table, I think.
Oh.
I took it out to get the screwdriver.
Okay. So this is the stove repair kit, and then I'll keep that with the Nalgene. I also have in here, which is super handy, tent patch. So that's something that, you don't need something this big, but to bring some tent patch. I have a journal. And I keep this in the tent, so it is my journal. I write in here every day what I've done. I bring it on every trip. A lighter, 2 pencils, and 2 flares and 3 bear bangers, which I almost lit the tent on fire one year because I heard a raccoon outside, so use those sparingly and carefully. This year, for the spring trip, my brother-in-law had a solar panel, and I borrowed one, but I ended up getting my own. I got the Big Blue. This is the one my brother-in-law had, and it charges like nobody's beeswax. So it's great. It'll charge the batteries for my camera and for my iPhone. Okay, so for coffee, I have this little device that screws onto the top of your Nalgene, and then you just fill your Nalgene with water and the coffee, and you put the lid on and let it perk. I find it's a really great tool, a really easy way to make coffee while you're camping. And then if you have a fire, you can dump the grinds in the fire, and it's like kind of neat and tidy and contained, or you pack it out with you, whichever kind of situation you're in. This is my camp sink. It is kind of bulky or awkward or whatever, but I pack it so it slides perfectly down into the barrel. And in this I have one of these like little scouring pads. This is kind of like a drying towel. I have my camp suds, and I have these little, I was able a long time ago to find these little towel tabs singly packed. So you just pop this out and it becomes like a wash towel. They're great for washing your face, and my brother and sister-in-law bought them in bulk, so you can get them probably on Amazon in bulk. They're really handy to have when you're camping, and you can either burn them or pack them out. Wet wipes, a camper's very best friend, especially if you don't have the ability to go swimming or to bathe. These are really great. So I keep these at the Thunder box with the toilet paper. a pack towel for swimming or whatever, getting wet. And then my pots. So I have a frying pan and 2 pots, and inside that, my stove. So we have, Brian, what kind of stove do we have? Whisper light?
Simmer light.
We have a simmer light and the reflection, or the reflectors. So this all fits in here, and then at the very bottom, I have my plate/bowl. I don't know where I put it, but I also have a camp mug, which is critical for drinking. Yeah, so that's missing from this from this display, but I do have it, and I will definitely bring it. You know, it's important. That morning coffee is like life when you're camping. So there is that. What else? Oh yeah, water. So there are some really cool water treatment options out there now. When we first started tripping, this was one of the only ones really available. So we have the MSR mini pump, which screws on to the top of an Nalgene bottle, which is awesome. Typically when I pump water, I fill up my Nalgene, and then we have a 4-liter MSR. What is this, like a platypus or a water bag? And this is plenty of water, especially for me, so I'll probably have to pump water once a day or maybe every other day, depending on how much I use. The only thing with this pump is you have to just make sure you use it correctly also, but clean the filter when it starts getting difficult to pump, and then replace the filter when it's worn down. So probably after this trip, I'm going to replace the filter, but I do have my eye on one of the new gravity-fed filters. I just didn't want to buy one for this trip. That's the truth. And then we have, this is our repair kit. So there's like a wrench and glue and a lighter and screwdrivers and crazy glue, tent patch, Velcro, spare doodads for any situation you might run into, or hopefully most situations that you will run into out kind of when you're tripping. So the only other thing I'm missing from this kind of stuff is the bear hang materials, which I will get. I bring extra rope just to have. Of course, my canoe and my paddles. So for this trip, I'm bringing my single blade Ray kettlewell paddle and the double blade I bought with the boat. Just allows for more power and control when you're paddling. The lake I'm paddling first is Smoke Lake, and it's a bigger lake, so I wanted to have something as a backup, just to make sure that I would have full control over the boat. If you are thinking about going on a solo trip, one thing I will say is, you know, it is nerve-wracking, but there are so many good resources out there now to help you plan and prepare. I would say you should probably have some experience in tripping and maybe not go solo for the first time by yourself if you've never gone on a canoe trip before. But once you get the hang of it, it is, you know, it's the same thing all the time. And you really do, like, as far as what you're going to do day to day, and you just have to be prepared. And so one of the resources that I tout and I've used since we started tripping was Kevin Callan's book, The Happy Camper. I even referred to this when we went in the spring because it had been so long, just to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything. I will also bring a compass. I have a whistle on my PFD that is really important. You should have with you on your body when you're paddling. That's one other thing I see a lot at this time of year, which I think is extraordinary, actually, knowing how much we know now about water safety, is people not wearing life jackets when they are in a vessel, especially a canoe or a kayak. You should always wear your life jacket. I don't care how hot it is, you should have it on. And it's not because your skills aren't up to par. Anything can happen. If a storm whips up, like that storm we were in the springtime, had we been on the water, we probably would have ended up in the water. And those waves were gigantic. The wind was crazy. And so you never know what could happen. Maybe, maybe your canoe tip's not of your doing. If you don't have your life jacket, it is the only thing that is going to help you if you are rendered kind of unable to swim or something like that. So your PFD is critical, and you should wear it all the time whenever you're on the water. I cannot stress that enough. It's not a level of tough. It's nothing like that. But yeah, when you're paddling, you should definitely have your PFD. I think you got the message. So yeah, my PFD, I think that's it. Okay, I did forget a couple things, some pretty important stuff. So I just wanted to put this in so that you had all of the information that I think you need if you're thinking about going on a canoe trip, solo or otherwise. Okay, so the first thing I forgot to mention was the inReach. Probably forgot to mention it because it's new to me and I've never had one of these before. But it is a Garmin inReach Mini 2, which will send an SOS if I'm in trouble using this little button here. But I'm also able to turn on tracks so that Brian, so I can, and share them with Brian so that he can see where I'm at, which gives me a little bit of peace of mind, maybe him too. He seems pretty undisturbed by this whole thing, which is really great and is super supportive. But also allows me to message other people like my sister, my mom, Brian, etc. So I got an inReach, which my solar panel will also charge. I have a Pelican case. All my camera equipment fits in here because I don't have anything super fancy. So I just keep my batteries, all of my charging cords, my SD cards, and miscellaneous electronics in there. I did forget to mention, so I mentioned that I have a Dragonfly Simmerlight stove, but I forgot to mention the fuel, which is critical because you can't run the stove without the fuel. So we have these containers, so I'm bringing one full and one refill. This one's about 3/4 full. That's more than what I need. But although I love to cook on a fire, I mean, I love cooking on a fire, but if it's supposed to be feels like 40, I'm probably not gonna have a fire, maybe in the nighttime, but not to cook any of my meals, maybe except for pizza. And I learned this trick from Noah from Northern Scavenger. So the part that hooks up, the actual connecting part that pressurizes and hooks up to the stove, if you cut off the top of a Gatorade bottle and protect it with duct tape, then it just protects this piece when you're packing it in the barrel. So if it gets knocked around, it's a little bit more protected, which I think is a pretty cool, idea. So good on them. So my stove fuel, and my stove uses white gas, so I just buy this fresh every year. So I never use old fuel, fresh every year at Canadian Tire. So that's that. You may be wondering, I'm not bringing yogurt with me. This is what I use to pee in at nighttime. I'm afraid of the dark and I'm afraid at night, and I don't like to get out of the tent if I don't have to. So I pee into here and then empty it every morning. I know, think what you like, but it gives me kind of peace of mind and makes me have a more enjoyable experience. And then I also don't hold my pee, which leads to lack of sleep. So I bring my yogurt container, I pack, I'll put a roll of toilet paper in here so it kind of reduces the bulk, and then pack it out. Pretty simple. Sometimes when I come out, I'll fill this with garbage, whatever. I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but for me, because of the dark, a headlamp is critical. So I have a Phoenix. If you've never heard of the brand Phoenix, F-E-N-I-X, they make an amazing set of illumination, everything, so flashlights and headlamps. So I'm bringing my Phoenix headlamp, and I'm also bringing a Phoenix flashlight. I'm not exactly sure where I put it right now, but anyways, I'm bringing a flashlight as well, just in case my headlamp, something happens to it. I also, because of my fear of the dark, bring light sticks. And I know this is plastic waste, but to try to help me sleep at night, I crack a light stick and hang it in the vestibule of my tent. And that way it just gives me a little bit of light if I wake up and I need anything, but it's not bright enough to keep me awake. So I bring one of these for each night, and I keep that with my journal, and I put all this stuff together and I keep it with me in the tent. I did reach out to Kevin Callan a number of weeks ago now about tips for solo trips. One of the things that he told me was to get a good tarp, which I already had. But the other thing that he told me to get, which I didn't have, was bear spray. And I hummed and hawed over it. And basically he just said, get it, you won't need it or use it, but it will help you sleep at night. So I got some bear spray. I'm not sure what my plan is for how to carry this. It has a little hip thing, but I'm not wearing pants that have this, so I'll probably just keep it close at hand. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge carrier of bear spray at any other time. All of the experiences that I've ever had with bear spray have been humans spraying themselves or having a bad experience. So, yeah. Okay. I'm also bringing my knitting and 2 books. So these books I actually bought at Kevin Kellam's yard sale a couple weeks ago. Farley Mowat, The Dog Who Wouldn't Be. I started this in Killarney and it's a great book, so I want to finish that one. And then another one called Who Goes Canoeing with Their Mother-in-Law. And although I don't think I'd ever be able to get my mother-in-law to go on a canoe trip with me, I think it's going to be funny. So I've brought that probably, I don't know what kind of time I'm going to have. There's so many unknowns on this trip. It's interesting. I bring 1 insulated mitt in case I do have a fire to be able to touch anything hot so that I don't burn myself. These were those twist ties that I talked about. I got these at Canadian Tire, but this is what I use to bind everything together and into the boat. So my double paddle, when I'm not using it, I'll use these to bind it together. Yeah, and my tripod, I will lash that into the boat with these. So these are handy. And then the last thing I just wanted to show you, because I talked about it twice in my video and never did show you, was what I use to do my bear hang. So I've got this little pouch and it's got about 200 feet. It's too much, but I didn't want to cut the line. This is Zing It throw line, and I think this is a 12-ounce throw ball. I don't need a 12-ounce, but it's what we had on hand, so I'm going to take it. Again, if I was really looking to reduce weight, I did at one point sew a little bag that you could fill with rocks and use as a throw ball, but I don't know where that went. So if I was looking to pack lighter, I would sew one of those again with a little cinch cord like I had, and it actually worked primo. So I made it out of with like parachute fabric, and it was really cool. So anyways, I use this to set the line, and then I have 2 carabiners with micro pulleys. So I set up a mechanical advantage using these, and then I have a whole bag of rope in this little Ostrom rope bag that you can attach to your pack. So so that is my bear hang kit. Definitely adds weight, I'm gonna say that. But for me is worth it for peace of mind. And then the last thing that I could think of that I'm bringing that I didn't mention was some clothespins, and that is just to hang up a laundry line because I'm staying put. Basically, this is like a glorified camping trip. I'm paddling in about 12 or 13 kilometers and then staying in one spot for the whole time and just day tripping and exploring from there. So yeah, so I brought some clothespins to dry my clothes after I go swimming because that is inevitable just to stay cool. Okay, I think that's it. If I've forgotten anything, I'll add it a little bit later. But anyways, I wanted just to bring you along to show you kind of what I'm bringing on my first solo canoe trip. I am hoping to video as much as I can while I'm on the trip, but because I'm going solo, there might be sections that I'm just unable to capture because I'm busy doing the thing. But anyways, the one other book I wanted to mention quickly was Paddle My Own Canoe by Esther Kaiser. That is the book that changed my life, literally set it on a different trajectory, gave me enough courage and motivation to start canoe tripping. I can't recommend it enough. So if you're by the Algonquin Visitor Center, or you can even get it online, pick up that book, give it a read. It's amazing, especially if you're a woman and this is something that you're trying to do or you want to become a little bit more independent. I can't recommend it enough. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.